Can't we have a national plan for Muslims and look at our issues, and we can present our own budget to address our developmental needs and challenges? Even an appointee of the Prophet Muhammad, who went out to collect taxes and came to report what he has collected, ended up presenting a particular envelope and said, this one was given to me as a gift. The response of the Prophet Muhammad to him was that even that money that was given to you as the gift in the course of rendering public service belongs to the public. Pay it into it. Zakat is the one that is you have been compelled to do, and Sadaqa is the one that you are doing it voluntarily.
Viewers, welcome once again to your special edition of interview, where we interview people who are celebrated personalities in our country, where we look at what the institution they represent and what they do. This is Baraka 90.7 FM. My name is Baba Abdul Fattah Yusuf. Today we are so privileged, highly privileged for that matter, to meet, to have this interview with Alhaji Baba Inusah, who is the secretary to the Speaker of Ghana's Parliament, and also, you know, he has many portfolios. But for today, we're looking at Zakat. You know, he has been instrumental in the formation and then bringing of this idea of the Zakat and Sadaqa Trust Fund. Alhamdulillah, now it is something that's it's an household name, and you want to look at the genesis, what came about this idea of instituting this noble idea, one of the fundamental pillars of Islam. Alhaji, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala.
MashaAllah, alhamdulillah. So, what do you tell us? How the concept of Zakat and Sadaqa Trust Fund? Yeah, because previously we know various sects in this country, ulamas, everybody doing it on his individual. What happened? And then now we have what you call the Zakat and Sadaqa Trust Fund.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وأمته وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Thank you, Brother Abdul Fattah. You know, the concept of zakat is an important concept, and for us as Muslims, it even goes beyond the issue of concept. It is an issue of mandatory requirement that makes it a pillar, one of the 5 pillars of Islam. And once Allah has made something mandatory, then all the necessary steps must be taken for it to be observed by people who adhere to the teachings of Islam and the teachings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As a country, Ghana, indeed, Islam didn't emanate from our borders. Islam, as we all know, came all the way from the Hijaz, within the territory of Makkah, travels to Medina, and from Medina, systems were put in place to enable it spread to the rest of the world. And in our case, it took almost close to hundreds of years before it arrived on our shores. And it also didn't come as a result of people seeking the knowledge of Islam. It came as a result of interaction between people from the Maghreb who came to conduct trade during the Trans-Sahara trade. And that brought the Arab from North Africa to Africa south of the Sahara. And then our people met in the market area and then got to see the beautiful practice that our Muslim brothers coming from the North Africa were practicing. And indeed, they came in as successful people. And because they came in as successful people,
business,
in terms of business, commerce, and they were seen to be wealthy as they were here to buy gold, salt, and so many other things. And our people attributed their success to the God that they worship. So because of that, they also sought to find out who that God is, so that they also, and in the process, became Muslims. But these people were not here to settle, to propagate Islam. So as they finish with their business, and they go back to wherever they come from until another trading season. So Islam didn't come to us as a result of a missionary activity. And the closest Islamic activity that could be said to be of missionary nature is that of the Ahmadiyya Muslim mission, which came in totality, program, project, objectives, everything set, and administrative mechanism to ensure that the missionary work is done. So we got it this way, and then because we got it this way, there wasn't time for people to be made to understand the full picture of the religion. So when you pick anything in piecemeal, you also will be practicing it in piecemeal. And even sometimes in the process, will use your own other practices which were similar to whatever is being taught by your new reformers, and then you add it to whatever it is, and it will take time before finally you set on the real thing. So zakat being one of the things that is supposed to be managed by an institutional mechanism, and for that matter, authority, run by what? Muslim governors or Muslim leaders who have been put in authority and accepted to be the ones to run the affairs of the people. We didn't have that opportunity. So because of that...
So what you are saying, just like what you have the Bait al-Mal.
Bait al-Mal. So because of that, the absence of the authority to manage our affairs, we ended up being relying on maybe an imam or a scholar who himself may have been also been operating under a chief or a king, and then is subject to the rules and regulations of the chief, who may not even have known much about Islam. So it all contributed to the reason why for a very long time, even up to date, we have not been able to establish an authority that can run the affairs of Muslims in our part of the world. So you see that later on, when Islam became something that was very, very attractive, our scholars who came to even propagate it had to find space under some chiefs or opinion leaders to lean on them to be able. So that's why when you come to our part of the world, you see that almost all imams are under chiefs. Because they have to lean on the authority of chiefs to be able to survive. And these chiefs themselves didn't have so much knowledge of Islam to have used the power that they have to ensure that this particular pillar of Islam, who requires authority, they will exercise it. You know, because they have it, and they were exercising it in their own way as chiefs and kings of the land. Because every African chief, in one way or the other, took some form of taxes from farmers, from traders who traded in their communities. And when farmers harvest, they still pay respect to the chief who gave them the land. I getting it? So you can see that if even the imam was to make an attempt to also embark on establishing his authority to collect this tax, which is supposed to be collected just like any other tax that a nation is supposed to collect from its citizens, they would have even been competing with the chiefs. So you could see that eventually that part of our worship, which is mandatory on us, we could not really exercise it the way it was supposed to be exercised. So eventually it became a voluntary activity for people to do it at their own volition. That is, if they get to now know that now that they are Muslim, they are supposed to pay zakat, and who is supposed to collect it? The imam cannot present himself as an authority to collect it. The only authority in that land who collect taxes from people who work on their land are the chiefs. And later on, all these chiefdoms finally merged together to form a new nation called Ghana. And now, and because we form a new nation called Ghana under a constitutional authority, that power now to collect these taxes migrated to what? The new nations that we have created, and we themselves are not necessarily run by Muslims. So when we appreciate all these things, we will understand why zakat had to suffer the way it has suffered as an important pillar that Allah has created to enable us to mobilize resources needed to manage the affairs of Muslims. So that difficulty is set in. So even as we speak now, we really wish Zakat Fund had that legal authority backed by the state. So if you go to countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, these institutions are backed by the state. Sudan, these institutions are backed by the state because they form part of the national.
That is aside their taxes.
In fact, they form part of even the national tax system. That's why most of these countries, they form part of the national even tax systems, to the extent that the modern state in some of the Islamic countries, they are be able to find a way of getting people to pay their zakat whilst still observing other national tax obligations which do not necessarily fall within the concept of taxation as given to us in the Quran and the practices of the Prophet Muhammad. But what they have done is to be able to be smart about it, knowing and considering the fact that zakat is also a tax, in order to avoid double taxation. A lot of them, when you are able to present your zakat certificate that you have paid your zakat, they now use that payment to when you are rendering account for your tax obligations, then your zakat payment is taken out in order for you not to be involved in what? Double taxation. In fact, this thing today, which is an Islamic or religious activity, has found space even in nations today that you cannot call them a religious state. So you see that if you go to a country like America or Britain, when you perform a corporate social duty, you can present the certificate of that to tax authority, and you will be exempted on that particular expenditure. Because you are performing public service with that amount of money, provided you are able to do it well and present it. So when you have a nationalistic picture of understanding of what zakat is, then it becomes easy for you to now determine who is supposed to collect it and who is supposed to disperse it and who is supposed to benefit from it. Yeah, but because we never at any point in time, like Ghana, had the opportunity of running an Islamic authority system that can, with the backing of law, because zakat is not something that you are supposed to pay at your free will.
Yeah.
Zakat is not something that you are supposed to pay and calculate the way you want and you like. No.
But the funny thing is that we see some who even put it in the envelopes.
Envelopes, that's it. Yeah, because of the fact that there's no authority, because the zakat institution and body is just supposed to come to you, just like the way Ghana Revenue Authority comes to you. To examine your wealth and to determine what is zakatable. Because the truth of the matter is that the Prophet built a nation. So there was a national government, a nation of Islam. He didn't leave behind individual, do whatever you like. No, he left behind a nation he built with a head of that nation, with ministers appointed, with district chief executives appointed, with regional ministers appointed, with finance. People don't understand all this. That the Prophet Muhammad did all these things. Yeah. That nation was run under a what? A constitutional framework. A constitutional framework established and endorsed by the Prophet himself. We started with the Charter of Medina. You know, so if you don't understand all these things, it makes it difficult to appreciate how such a big issue is zakat as compared to what we are really dealing with. Because zakat, is, to be very honest with you, it is talking about public accounts. We are not talking about private accounts. Yeah. What belongs to the people. Resources, Allah said you should collect it in His name on behalf of the people and spend it on matters affecting the people. So you cannot collect it privately, take it home privately, and spend it privately, as for many years most people have done. Yeah. And then I can say we can excuse each other for what happened in the past, but it will be difficult for us to excuse each other for now knowing how it should have been done, and we didn't have the opportunity to do it, and because of that, it has told a very big story about our community in terms of our growth and in terms of our development. So if we were to understand that zakat is about growing and developing the nation of Islam, our attitude towards it would have been different. And what even makes it worse is the fact that most scholars who ended up speaking about zakat or even doing da'wah about zakat presented it as if it is also another sadaqah. Yeah. Because they presented it as if it is just another sadaqah.
So what's the difference?
Yes. Sadaqah is a voluntary, what do you call it, charity, if I may put it that way, that an individual or group of individuals can give to support the needs of a person or other group of person
or institution
or an institution without any mandatory imposition of that thing, that payment on them. because Islam encourages brotherhood. Islam encourages us being each other's keepers. So on daily basis, the Muslim is a brother of another Muslim. I found out that a colleague of mine or my neighbor cannot feed himself, or my neighbor's child cannot go to school. My neighbor's child is sick and they cannot go to hospital. And I realize that I'm in a position to help them. And I come out to use my resources to do that. That is Sadaqa. That is charity. But Zakat is not waiting until you see somebody suffering. Zakat is something that you have been asked to pay annually, just as all nations collect taxes from their citizens annually. So that when you collect these resources, then you begin to now understand where the resources should go. And people are indeed supposed to be appointed to be responsible for the collection. So you can see that we have suffered a lot. Nobody appointed those who have been collecting zakat. We just assume that because he's an imam or because I think he's a needy person in our community, or I cannot be blamed because there's none. No institution that I'm supposed to go and pay the money to. So I just come out of my house and then, because I'm determined to pay it. And just identify somebody and then give the money, or I'll give it to an imam who has no true understanding that what he has collected is public money. So that is the difference. So zakat is a what? Something that you have been taxed to pay. So long as you have an income or resources that are zakatable within a certain threshold, you are mandated to pay it. And you are supposed to pay it to authority. Or authority is demanded by Allah to collect it from you, even if you are not willing to pay. So that is the difference. So you pay that. The only reason why people see it to be like Sadaqa is just because Allah tells us in the Quran that in the Sadaqatikum lifukara, we end there. But that's not only thing that the Quran says.
إن الصدقة للفقراء
والمساكين
والآمنين
من عليها وابن السبيل وفي سبيل الله. So we don't say the rest. And because we don't say the rest, we end it with the first item and then let the rest die. Because the rest we cannot apply because we are not authority. We have not employed anybody. We have not, in fact,
managers of.
We are not managers of anything. So we just assume when the Quran make reference to Fukara wal Masakin, it means somebody I can assume in my head as he's a Fukara or Masakin. Meanwhile, it is not so. Because it is authority that is supposed to determine who that person is. And the authority determines who that person is based on his income threshold. So that's why the nisab is what? Needed. So you have collected it, who has determined that in the name of poor people, who has determined that you are a poor person? Who has checked your annual income?
Because I might know that you are a poor person. By the time I'm even going to give it to you,
you are not a poor person. And what is, so you see that there is a big work to be done around it. So we have to find out whether you are an employed person or self-employed person. If you are a self-employed person or you are employed, what are your earnings? Are you earning enough to be able to take care of yourself and your dependent? And this is what the state of Islam or the nation of Islam is supposed to do, just as how it is done by every nation. So when the Minister of Finance is bringing budget to Parliament of Ghana, he comes out with an instrument that shows tax threshold.
Yeah.
So if a citizen is not earning up to the taxable threshold, GRA cannot tax that person. Or they use the minimum wage as a measure.
Yeah.
If your earning is below the minimum wage, you are not supposed to be taxed. Because that is the minimum at which somebody can earn a living income. So there are so many measures. So these are things that authorities are supposed to establish. So if we were to properly even organize ourselves as a body, and then we now establish an authority that will now be determining this. So at the moment, you see that the Zakat and Sadaqa Trust Fund, the Board of Trustees, so we have, because we have registered this institution to play this role on behalf of the Ghanaian Muslim community. It means we have established ourselves now as an authority to do that. And you are not just doing it at free will, you are doing it within what the teachings of the Quran and the teachings of the Holy Prophet and the practices of even Khulafa who came after them. Because this thing is human. It has gone through so many phases of human development. So you have seen that it contributed greatly to the growth of Islam from the Medina area up to Jerusalem to Turkey. Zakat played an important role because during the period of the propagation and during the period of conquest, it was Zakat resources that the Prophet and later his Khalifas would rely on to be used in the running of the affairs of the Islamic nation that they had established. Because this nation, the true dream of it was to be a global nation. Not just something that happened within the confines. That's why you could see Islam expanding up to the Roman Empire and entering Europe, and then the whole of Turkey. Turkey is in Europe. The headquarters of the Roman Empire was in Turkey. At the time that Khalifa Umar bin Khattab became the leader of the Muslim nation, so they were able to expand because how were the army fed? The administrators, the managers, how were they fed? The ambassadors they appointed to foreign nations, they were all fed from these taxes that Allah said, if you are a Muslim, pay this tax. And people don't even, as I always tell people, sometimes when you don't go to the root words of terms that are being used, you don't even get things very, very clearly. What is Sadaqah? What is, when Allah wanted to talk about Zakat, he didn't mention Zakat, he mentioned what? Sadaqah. And I always tell people, when you define Sadaqah as charity in Islam, you may not get it totally correct.
Okay.
In Islam, Sadaqah does not necessarily mean charity. The root word of the term Sadaqah means sincerity. It doesn't mean charity.
As in Siddiq.
Yes. Master, where can your sincerity be tested? If you claim, you believe in Allah, if you claim you believe in the message of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, prove it. How did Abu Bakr earn the name Sadiq? Because it's one person who could give even everything he had just to ensure that the mission of the Holy Prophet Muhammad succeeds. So he does it without like even thinking. To the extent that even the Prophet Muhammad himself questioned him, what have you left for your children and your wives?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So it tells you have to get to the roots of it. So when we give Sadaqa in Islam, in fact, it's a testament and confirmation of our belief in Allah, and that Sadaqa, we can give it in the form of money, resources, and those who didn't have gave it in the form of their energy, their bones, in fact, their lives. Yeah. People went out to surrender their very existence to defend Islam. Yeah. In fact, those who couldn't even pay, give them. They will tell the Prophet that this person is able to do this, and as for me, apart from, you know, it just tells you how they understood it. They want to. In fact, somebody here demonstrated it to me. Yeah. When we started Zakat Farm Pilot project in 2008, we exempted an officer. I will always mention this, Yusuf. He was at the catering unit. Because when we came out, Parliament. Okay. When we came out with our Nisab, it was 11,178 old Ghana cedi. That before we re-evaluated our currency. Yeah. And Yusuf's salary was 11,170,000. And because of the 8 cedi, we stood on that ground and we told him that he was not qualified to pay. Okay. But as the staff were taking their pay slips and Zakat deduction were shown in the pay slip, it became a worry to Yusuf. Oh, wow. He came to my office and asked me, Alhaji, am I a Muslim? Yes. And I said, yes, we're a Muslim. What question is that? And I said, where is the evidence? he asked me, and I said, but we do pray with you at the back. And he said, look at everybody's pay slip. Look at my pay slip. There's evidence in this world that some people are observing the third pillar of Islam, which they can present to Allah. I've never even thought about that. There's evidence here in this world. So I also want to have that evidence on my payslip. In fact, that day, he made me to change the way I even understood the whole thing to now realize that it is not people who have money who pay zakat, but people who have iman.
That's true.
In fact, that day he changed. I told him, well, I'm just following the rule. But the rule permits that you can give Sadaqa because it's not compulsory on you. But you can still give it as voluntary. A voluntary one. You still get the same reward. So, but you have to determine how much you want to give because it is voluntary. Yusuf told me, yes, I want to pay. And I asked him how much and said, I want you to deduct the same 2%. And that was what he told me. In fact, to be very honest with you, the following year he was about to go on retirement. When I was given the opportunity of a Hajj slot for Muslim staff, about 2. Though he was a junior, I gave 1 to him. I said, because you are determined to fulfill all the 5 pillars of Islam,
you have to complete it.
And I told all the others, I've given the
and
other one.
They have to agree.
Everybody understood. So we gave it to Yusuf to go because he had the desire to see himself complete the 5 pillars of Islam. And this desire should be something that should be in the heart of everybody who says is a Muslim. Because you belong to a nation of Islam. You have obligation. You have a duty to contribute your quota financially, material, human capital to the growth and development of this nation left behind as a manner for all of us by the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if we see it from this angle, people will rather be craving to be seeing themselves doing it than for us to make people think it is a voluntary thing. I decide
who I give it to,
who I
and
give
how
it
I do-
to,
how-
and
how I-
how I give it to. No, it's not supposed to be so. In the life of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, nobody collected zakat and took the money home. All the appointed people took zakat and paid it into the Bayt al-Mal. And you should have been a certified what? Collector.
Trustworthy person.
Trustworthy person. And they were all what? Appointed by the Holy Prophet Muhammad for the purpose. Whenever he established a district leadership, let's say a governor of Kufa or a governor of Syria, he appoints zakat collector, an officer to accompany him. And he will be responsible for the collection of what? The zakat in that district. And when all these things are collected, they are paid to what? The national headquarters. And because it is from there that even the collector takes his pay.
So I've now seen where our previous history of Mansa Musa and Co, when they were embarking on Hajj,
Yes.
and they have to
Carry
a lot of
Yes,
that they're also going to take their.
That's it.
That's the understanding.
That's it. You know, so if you have this understand that zakat is not, we shouldn't just go to the Quran and pick a portion of an ayah incomplete and refer it to zakat. Ask every Muslim, what is zakat? You say, oh, zakat is poor due. That's the definition every average Muslim will give you. But that is not totally correct. It is just partially correct. It is partially correct in the sense that at the time that this ayah came, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not just a messenger of Allah to deliver the message of the Quran. The people themselves, starting from Medina, voluntarily, by popular acclamation, declared him their leader, their political head of the city of Medina. It is from that seat that they established the Muslim army. It is from that seat they started expanding the territories of the
Mecca and then Medina.
You see, there's something people don't understand. The Prophet was playing dual role. A leader of a newly established state during a period of what? Conquest. Because it was a period that kingdoms were acquiring territories and managing territories. So when this new nation was established, it was also behaving the same way that the Roman Empire and the Byzantine Empire, the Persian Empire were all what? Behaving. So you can see that because he was running a double rule, as that nation was what? Expanding, it gave Islam the opportunity to have free space what? To practice. That's why when people read the history of Islam, they will hear that the Prophet will tell people that you cannot compel anybody to become a Muslim.
Like Rafiddin.
Because it was because of nationalism that particular ayah came. Because prior to these ayahs even coming, there was a charter of Medina to which the Prophet was a signatory. The charter which recognized Jews, Christians, Armenians, all as members of the newly established nations. And they all agreed to be part of this nation because they were given guarantee that they were free to practice their faith. Just as we have in the Republic of Ghana. We are all operating under what? Constitution that guarantee what? Our individual religious freedom. So that is the constitution on which the Prophet sat first to rule Medina. So you have to understand these things. So that's why even when it came to the issue of zakat, because when they started, they were collecting, mobilizing resources to manage the newly established nations from people who voluntarily appeal for fun. we are going to
Yeah,
do this.
yeah.
There's a war. Market, people will bring food to help us. That's how it was at the beginning. So you can see that there were citizens who are not ready to let go.
Yeah.
Because they are stingy. Yet they are enjoying the safety and the security that the army that has been put in place is providing
For the people.
for them. And they are able to have freedom and space to do their business and the peaceful atmosphere because the Muslim army is providing, or the newly created state army. Because to be very honest with you, that army was not just being run by only Muslims. People don't know this. The initial army, there were Jewish people in it who had all joined the government. And they were, so that's why people don't understand. When they hear stories about people like Abdullah bin Ubay and other, a lot of them were Jews. And they accepted to be part of the new nation. But later on, when they realized how the Prophet was managing affairs and Islam was gaining more currency, because whatever nation that they were building was also supporting the growth of what? Islam, because of the presence of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because this was an honest leader, this was an accountable leader, and this was the leader who will not take the amana of the people, and this is a leader who holds his appointees accountable. Do you get it? So, and a leader who never imposed his fate on other people. So his lifestyle also created admiration for him. So as that nation was expanding, people do not fall under his territory. They fall under the territory. If they take up your place, you either pay zakat or you pay jizya if you are not you are not a Muslim. Because why so? Because Allah put his mouth in tax collection. Because Allah spoke in the Quran, directing the Prophet, who was now the governor, Hus min amwalim sadaqa. And I'll say that, so if you don't know this particular ayah was directed to a person in authority, and you think it is an ayah that is meant for just everybody, then you will not be able to appreciate zakat.
No, it didn't come with persuasion.
Because who was the Prophet Muhammad? Governor, commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the newly created state. Who was the Prophet Muhammad? Head of the judiciary, the Supreme Court of the newly created state. Who was the Prophet Muhammad? He was the speaker of the Shura. That was meeting to discuss matters of the state. Who was the Prophet Muhammad? He had police, he had court system that try cases, advocate on matters, and even pass judgments. So you have to understand all this before you can appreciate zakat. So it is a revenue that was to be mobilized for the running of the affairs of the people. Except that Allah guided him and said, when you collect the revenue, make sure that you use it to alleviate the suffering and poverty of the what? The disadvantaged people in society. And this is where Malams took advantage. So this command, it was to a state that was supposed to collect taxes. And Allah is telling the Prophet how the taxes were to be what? Used. So when you collect the taxes, do you use it what? To alleviate what? Poverty. Master, every nation in the world, when it collects taxes, its primary duty is to use the taxes to what? Ameliorate the suffering of the people, especially the vulnerable in society. I always try to use Saito school. So when the rich people can take their children to Chimota is no more that class, Akosombo and others, the state should build Saito schools with the what? The tax money to do what? To educate them and to take them out of their poverty. The state can use that money to capitalize what? The poor who do not have capital to start business. So if you see, let's say, John Muhammad say he's creating a, let's say, women bank. Or the government say they are doing LEAP, livelihood empowerment program. These are the things that zakat money is supposed to do. By what? People in authority who have collected this money use it to better the lives of the people. So whereas zakat money is looking at macro implementation of poverty alleviation, your sadaqah is a micro activity to alleviate the suffering of an individual or group of individuals. Are you getting this? So sadaqah is dealing with what? Microeconomy, while zakat is dealing with what? Macro economy. So when you get this understanding of what it is all about, then you will now appreciate if you do not collect it into one treasury and sit down to plan how to spend it. Because when Allah tells you in the sadaqatikum lifukara wa masakin, He didn't say go to the street and share the money. That's not what Allah said. He didn't say go to the street and share food. That's not what Allah said. It is up to what? The governing body of the community to determine how do we spend these resources to take our people out of suffering. And believe me, I will not be a leader of a community where the people are poor and they are ignorant, and I'll go and what? Share, because poverty is a byproduct of ignorance. Because you can be sitting on gold,
but yet
if you are ignorant, you'll be poor.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, you can have the whole forest to yourself. If you don't have knowledge of agriculture, you go hungry.
That's true.
So I would rather, as a nation builder, spend this money in such a way that will take the citizens out of what? Poverty, by giving them education, by giving them skills, by giving them, all the things that they need to be able to stand on their own feet. So that is how we are supposed to picture zakat. So it is meant to take the Muslim community to what? Out of extreme poverty and bring everybody at least to be able to live above water. And it is the benefit of doing that. Every nation knows the benefit. In a country where you now see people fighting each other and eating each other up is where the gap between the rich and the poor is up to the limits that can no longer be acceptable. Then you create your own armed robbers. You create your own. So all these things Allah commanded managers of what? Nations. When you collect these taxes that I've asked you to collect, use it to reduce the burden or the suffering of the people. So we must have that picture, and that's why the rest of the ayah that our moderator just mentioned. When you collect the tax, from that tax money, pay the people who have been employed to collect the taxes. So if Ghana was to be a nation of Islam, it means the ayah was referring to Ghana Revenue Authority staff. Because where do they get their salary from? They get it from the very taxes that they collect. The ayah says, when you collect the taxes, use the money also to pay those who have been engaged to run the affairs of the state. In modern time, we call them what? Civil servants and what? Public servants. So the prophet, it means that the prophet used to have what? Civil servants and public, all the people he employed to collect zakat, all the people he employed to be around regional administration, all the people he employed to become judges in all the communities and districts that he established, they all became what? Public servants. So Allah tells us in the Quran wa fi sabilillah.
Yeah.
Those working in the cause of Allah. That's why we get this term from service to your nation is service to what? God. In fact, all these things came because of the role the Prophet Muhammad played. Because he was being guided to play that role. And that role today has become the documented manner in which nations spend their taxes. Who were the civil servants, the public servants, the soldiers, the army, who were all serving? Who were they? The intelligence. The Prophet had a lot of intelligent people who were in other communities, sometimes spying on enemies. And giving reports, information. If you think BNI started with Ghana or CIA started with Ghana, you don't know. It was the Prophet CIA who found out that Abu Sufyan was buying war equipments in Syria after going to sell their products in a market. And they reported to the Prophet that they observed that Abu Sufyan, the Meccan people, might be planning to attack us. Because we can see that all the items that they have sold, most of the things that they buy are war equipment. What did the Prophet do? The Prophet commanded for preemptive strike. The Americans call it preemptive strike. So those goods were intercepted. In fact, it became part of the reason why they defeated the Americans during the Battle of Badr. Because they were weakened by that interception. And the Muslims took ownership of the war equipment. So when you understand the history, then it helps you. So we are saying all this history because we want people to understand what zakat is supposed to be used for. So in this case, the teachers, the police, me sitting here as an officer of parliament, all working for the state. We are among the what? Fi sabilillah. We are working for the state, because it's God who established the state. And then the Prophet Muhammad was to be the head of state. So he's telling you how to live your life as a what? Nation. Unfortunately, our nation, that's why when our enemies, and for that matter, the enemies of Islam, realized the only way they could defeat Islam was to divide Muslims. Because Islamic nation, which was run under the caliphate, had become so rich, so powerful. They started permeating the boundaries of the Roman Empire and other European nations, and they realized that it's a human institution. Even in the life of the Prophet, people even started struggling for power. And you can see that even up to now, the little wars that are going on now. By the time Iran became nice with Saudi Arabia, somebody will threaten Saudi Arabia and say, hey, the Iranian, we have intelligence. They are planning to attack Mecca. And Saudi Arabia, because the enemy knows the day you become united, then they are finished. So the best way you can be defeated is for you to be divided. That's why some people don't understand why some of us in Ghana here, we are promoting the cause of the National Muslim Conference of Ghana, which is seeking to bring us together to fight for our fair share of the what? National cake. Because when you remain divided, you become weak. So if we were to even understand, in fact, National Muslim Conference, for some of us in our heads and minds, did not come by accident. Even though the Western Gate issue started, some of us, even underground, we had already been working on things with trying to even convince the office of National Chief Imam for us to have even established a Supreme Islamic Council. And we were looking for the Supreme Islamic Council because of Zakat Fund. Because if that council is in place, it will play the role that the Shura of the Prophet Muhammad used to play, even in the determination of the what? Nisab, and appointment of who should be the chief executive of Zakat Fund, so all those things will happen. Who should be in charge of Northern Region, who should be in charge of this district. All these things are supposed to be there. But because we started Zakat in Parliament, we recognize this. We even on our own little manner started opening up our offices to the regions, because we know it's supposed to be a national project. So if you understand Zakat that way, we were talking about the things to use zakat for. The Quran also tells us use it to do what? To cater for people who are what? Bankrupt.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, bankruptcy is a state act. Bankruptcy matter is different from mere indebtedness. Our imams have just defined zakat man to take care of people who are indebted. As I'm seeing there, when you check my pay slip, I'm sure I've borrowed some money. Am I the one that the ayah is referring to? Maybe Fatah as a teacher, if you go to check, you go realize that maybe some Kose has been taken this morning on credit. Are you the one that the ayah is referring to? Because you're also what? Owing. Or you are indebted. But that's not what it's referring to. Yeah. The state is responsible for collecting taxes. But individuals who are supposed to pay taxes, or institutions that are supposed, or companies that are supposed to pay taxes, when it is time for them to pay their taxes and they are not able to pay because business is not going on well, because the tax collector has come to collect, you open your account only to realize that you are even owing above your nose. You can't even breathe. So because you cannot breathe, you are a businessman. We have been coming to collect zakat from you. Maybe you run livestock, only for us to realize that some disease occurred.
Yeah.
And because of that, all your animals even die. And what you have, they are even below the zakat table animal. For example, if you have 40 rams, you are supposed to pay one. Only for us to realize you used to have even 100. Today we have come, they are not even up to 39. Allah is telling the authority, when you collect the taxes, support that person to stand up again. Because he cannot even pay his taxes. Because he's no more earning up to the point that he was supposed to be a businessman. Maybe because of that ranch that he had employed so many people. So people will lose their jobs. So when you hear American government has issued a bailout to pharmaceutical companies, wallahi, it is an Islamic principle. But Muslims are not aware. These people found it in Islam. It's an Islamic principle for the state. Let me just bring you home. If Islamic principle was applied, there's so many banks we lost during the previous administration would have still been alive. Even if their accounts was not showing signs of good balances, the first responsibility of the state was to bail them out. Once you investigate and you realize that it is not as a result of mismanagement, it's not as a result of criminal activity, because we are all just coming out COVID, so many things. If you find out all these things, and also people's income levels, I said that all the monies they took, what sort of investment did they put it into? So the state look at all those things and see that no, if you collapse these companies, so many people will lose jobs. So many people will even lose their money. Some of the monies are invested in some activities, and because of that, the profit those activities will generate will happen later. So can we give them some 5 years respite by pumping in money into them to keep them alive, to see whether up to the end of the 5th year they will have recovered and even pay the money back if you want it back. So the Quran is telling you that use the taxes collected to save individuals and bodies engaged in business who things are not going on well for them through not their own making, because it could be what they call a drought, it could be anything, it could be any disaster. So you see, that the ayah is about nation. How a nation, how could Allah have said that and expecting an individual to go and bail out a pharmaceutical company? How could it have meant that me, my salary, when I'm paying zakat, I should come and bill out, let's say MTN, that is running. Yeah, because it's all about revenue. Yeah. So it is about what? A nation. So at a point in time, Allah was telling humanity how to collect from people who are privileged and use it to create a balanced society. So that people will not suffer unnecessarily as a result of some people making it so much to the disadvantage of others. Because whenever people are losing somewhere, it is very likely that others are piling up somewhere. So this balance, and because Allah tells us in the Quran that we are just trustees of whatever we hold by way of wealth. So if you are a Muslim and you know that the wealth is not for you, it is given to you by Allah, then you have the duty, because you know the owner is telling you do that. So if you say you are not doing that, how can you be honest about being a Muslim? That's where the Sadaqa comes in. So the first about it is your sincerity, and the second about it is when you give it, it purifies you. So when you pick the ayah, you see that it mentions both the Sadaqa and the Zakah in that same ayah. It mentions both the what? The sincerity and the purity. The purification. It mentions it. So the key does it. Yeah. So when you do that, it means you have obeyed Allah, you have shown your sincerity, and that's why.
So, what was how was the initial stages of Zakat and Sadaqa?
Yeah.
What was the response from the community?
Even up to now, I can say we are still at initial stage. Oh. I can say that. It is young. We started our pilot in 2008 and launched it in 2010 to bring other people outside Parliament to join. Because I can say that a lot of people still have not understood Zakat. And for the few civil servants and public servants and private sector employees who have accepted Zakat fund and are letting go whatever Allah has blessed them with it, I can say that Zakat fund would have been struggling to stand on its feet because we are still not yet getting business people, commercial business people. We are not still getting farmers who have gone to harvest to say that, hey, I've harvested and I've got 100 bags of corn and this is my Zakat. We are still not getting those ones. Yeah, in fact, what we are getting now, in fact, I can say it is something that the public servants who I can say have gone extra mile, even after paying taxes to the state. Still money to pay this particular tax to out of Iman. I call it out of Iman, because they could have made a case and said that we are already paying to the state. But because we know Ghana is not an Islamically run nation, not all the taxes we paid are used to do things that will promote the cause of Islam. So we still have the duty and responsibility as Muslims to create a financial system that will promote our interests and our cause, just as other religious bodies like Christians and Jews also do. Whenever they find themselves in any nation, they still pay their taxes to the state. And that one, I told somebody that this answer was provided by a prophet. Yes, the prophet Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, who was confronted with this question. Now that Caesar has introduced this coin and asked us to pay taxes, how then do we still continue to pay the zakat that Allah has commanded us to pay from you? He took the coin and looked at it and said, and Caesar's head was on the coin. He said, whose head is on this coin? And the person who came to ask him was mischievous. He wanted to avoid zakat. And then the person said, oh, it is Caesar's head. And Nabi Isa told him, then give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar and give to Allah what belongs to Allah. It is on this principle that we still encourage people who still earn and still think that, because Ghana is our Caesar. Ghana government is our Caesar. Because they have the power and the authority to collect. But we want to build the nation of Islam in Ghana. So we still have the obligation to what? And I always make this, if you are even a member of ordinary association, you still pay membership dues.
Of course.
So why do you want to belong to the nation of Islam in Ghana and you don't want to contribute anything towards it? And even if you are doing it and you are not doing it properly, then the nation will not grow and develop the way it's supposed to grow. Because a lot of people I know, especially market women, I know they go to pay zakat to immediate imams and malams, but they take this money home. Subhanallah. Because the ruling of the Prophet was that act. But it's not a palatable one. Because the Prophet Muhammad tells us that whoever takes public money and go to spend it on himself privately, on Yawm al-Qiyamah, he's going to account to every citizen. Subhanallah. From your reward. But this is a serious matter. And I always tell people, if you are a public officer or you receive money on behalf of the public, this is a rule of our Prophet. Don't tell yourself that, Ghana is not an Islamic nation. The tax money is public money. Master, we are all guilty in one way or the other. Because sometimes there are others we close our eyes and other people abuse, or we even abuse our own selves.
So are you referring to those who do that domestically or those who get it from outside?
Domestically,
as in terms of those who receive the zakat?
Both domestically and from outside. When zakat money is given to you, you can only use it on public good. You cannot use it privately except what has been paid to you.
Okay.
For as your administrative responsibility, you are paid for it. Because it is written, not me, it's in the Quran. It's the Quran because when the zakat body or zakat is sent to you, it is expected that you are supposed to spend on public. You presented yourself as you want to receive it on behalf of the people. Nobody sent you there. Yeah. If the sender says, okay, I've sent you 100,000, but I've added 20,000 for your movement, your transportation and other things, Allah has given you that one in the Quran. But if that is not the case, to be very honest with you, it's just because Islam broke down. The caliphate system broke down. Nobody would have even sent it to you in the first place.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we would have had a zakat authority into which the money would have come
directly.
Yeah. And that zakat authority, because that will be the government of the Muslims in Ghana, will determine, Ghanaian Muslims, we are lacking hospitals or clinics. Ghanaian Muslims, we are lacking schools or madrasas. That can help, or we are lacking vacation because we want to alleviate what? Poverty. We want to uplift the image. And you can see where it is being implemented properly, like Turkey and other places, you see the effect. Because people don't just throw it out there in the street. They know that it is supposed to be paid to an institution. But where it is a sadaqah you want to do voluntarily, that one you can determine what you want to spend it on and who you want to give it to. But whilst it is zakat, to be very honest with you, and that is the appeal I'm making to our imams, an appeal I'm making to our scholars. We should dialogue, we should sit down and begin to talk. If you know you want to be an imam responsible for collection of zakat, please make yourself available to the Zakat and Sadaqa Trust Fund, and you will be registered as what? A zakat collector.
It's possible.
It's possible. Why should it not be possible? You are an imam of a Jumu'ah mosque. Because we don't have the system to open offices everywhere. So you now become what? Accredited agent. That's what Allah asks you to do. So that when
they will be getting a commission out
of that. That's it. So that when you receive it, take it to your Beit al-Mal that has been established, so that your commission and your salary or wage would have been determined. If you collect this, we are giving you this percentage, or we are paying you this fixed amount. Let us do that, so that we'll be chopping clean money. If you don't do that, especially now, because yesterday we didn't have the Beit al-Mal.
Yeah.
So you can give an excuse that, oh, I took it and gave it to people in my community. You can give those excuses. But can't we have a national plan for Muslims so that when we meet at national conference and look at our issues and we can present our own budget to address our developmental needs and challenges, so that at the end of the day, if you are an imam, Masa, Zakat, when we treat it properly, my brother, every Jumu'ah imam can possibly receive a pay. If we treat our Zakat and Sadaqa properly, I believe strongly. How many Jumu'ahs do we have in a community? Are you getting it?
And a lot of them make money.
How many Jumu'ahs do we have in a community?
Yeah.
So let's say you have a district and there are even 10 or 20 Jumu'ah mosques within that district. And the community indeed has Muslims in the community. And people were to be paying their zakat regularly into a kitty. It is possible to determine in that district, because zakat fund should have been opened a district office to be managing what is collected in that district, just as the Prophet Muhammad used to do. So that we can determine the 5 collectors. You are just going to be 5 collectors if you are 5 masjid. So that we determine, so that you know with certainty, you have a paycheck at the end of every month to be paid to you from the zakat that you are collecting, or the sadaqah that is meant for what? Community. But you sit down, you alone, and all these zakats are brought to you, and you carry it home, and at the end of 50 years, our community become what they have become. Masa. Our community become what we all, I don't want to mention the name of the communities, but we all know our communities. And the other religious bodies that Allah commanded them also to collect zakat. But because they put their own in a common pot, they are able to build their infrastructure, and they are able to take the majority of their people out of poverty, and then you go and be fighting with them over space unnecessarily. Masa, how can somebody who use the zakat money to build a school, and another person who collect the zakat money to go and eat chinchanga have the same facility? Because the state can come and even say, I'm coming to help the communities with, let's say, get fund money. And they've come, you don't even have a land. My brother, you don't even have a land that you have used your zakat money to buy. As we speak, the zakat fund has acquired some lands for these purposes in future. A lot of them are in bushes. But that's what forward-looking people at the Catholics and things did. They bought lands in today. They are in the cities. Those lands are in the cities. Because if you want to buy city land, we cannot buy. So Allah has not yet folded his F. So whether the lands are in the bush, we have bought some lands, and then we are looking forward to a future where the state says we want to use get farm money to build a school for the Muslim community. It's not going to be Alhaji Ahmadu's land. It is going to be a land for the Muslim community, so that your children cannot come and inherit it when you die and create problems for.
You don't personalize it.
You don't personalize it. So these are the things that we lack. So these are the things that Zakat Fund is aiming. So Zakat Fund, we have, as we have it today, we are not panicking. When you understand even how Islam itself grew, a good thing will definitely eventually market itself. Yes, because we are looking over 400 years accumulated challenge we have today. And everybody is thinking that Zakat Fund can fix it. Zakat Fund cannot fix it now. We can actually double up our effort to reduce the number of years that we will require to fix it, or we continue to be slow, So we are taking this medium to appeal to institutions and individual people that Allah has blessed, that we should stop throwing our zakat in the streets just the way we have done all these years, and it has not taken our community out of poverty. We should begin to put all our zakat into a pool, so that even if every 2-3 years we can put out a vocational center in one district, in a particular community, and another 5 years later put another one, we would have been making progress with our lives than to continue to share the money in the street. When you go and give your zakat to people in the street, you are giving sadaqah. The Prophet Muhammad never commanded anybody to pay his zakat to anybody in the street. And the Prophet Muhammad never accepted for any collector of zakat to use that zakat money and take it home as a profit. In fact, my brother Abdul Fattah, even an appointee of the Prophet Muhammad, who went out to collect taxes and came to report what he has collected, ended up presenting a particular envelope and said, this one was given to me as a gift. The response of the Prophet Muhammad to him was that even that money that was given to you as the gift in the course of rendering public service belongs to the public. Pay it into it. Not even the zakat itself.
What you've got in.
Maybe Abdul Fattah has come to collect it in my office, and when he's leaving, I say, oh, I can see that you are really struggling. Take this money, and the Prophet Muhammad said, Abdul Fattah cannot take it home. That is Islam. Highest level of what? Financial governance. This physical governance introduced into Islam through the teaching of a Prophet Muhammad, which many nations have adopted. I always tell people, John Muhammad was saved by this teaching of the Holy Prophet Muhammad in his first term of office, when he was offered a vehicle by a contractor. And he submitted that to the state as required by law. So a journalist who didn't know he had done that took him on for accepting a gift. So when the investigation was conducted, it was realized that he did what was proper. He surrendered it to what? To the state. He didn't take it home. It is in the laws of Ghana, and that law emanated from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which Europeans adopted as part of principle of what? Tax collection and public administration. So people don't understand what Islam has contributed to governance, and for that matter, good governance. So we are appealing to our people wherever you are, whether you are in Ghana or you are outside Ghana, please stop giving your zakat with in your heart, your intention. It is meant to be a zakat. Don't throw it in the street. And even your sadaqah, don't throw it to the street. I always tell people, if you don't understand how Islam is structured, zakat is the barest minimum amount you can contribute from your wealth towards the growth of Islam. It is not the maximum. Some charities, some sadaqahs are larger and bigger than zakat.
That's true.
Whereas zakat is giving you that if you are stingy and you don't want to touch your money, Allah is saying that I'm compelling you to give 2.5%. But if you are aware of Yawm al-Qiyamah and you know whatever you spend in the cause of Allah is an investment into Yawm al-Qiyamah, you will do what Abu Bakr and Usman and Ali and others used to do. You won't be afraid of spending it in the cause of Allah. And those who know, that's how they spend it. So zakat is not the maximum. So don't even be proud of yourself that you are paid zakat. Don't be proud of yourself that you are paid 2.5%. No. That's the barest minimum Allah is asking you. And I call Islam is the religion of what? Minimum. So when people hear pillars of Islam, they never actually understood what the pillars means. The pillars mean boundaries.
Yeah.
Your chiselness should not cross the boundary of 2.5%. Your salat daily should not cross the boundary of at least 5 times a day. Your siyam, no matter how you like putting food in your stomach and doing all other things, because if you are able to fast throughout the year, the better even for you, if you are capable. But if you are not able, at least in a year, 29 or 30 days, that's what you have been told. That's what the maximum your faith or your iman will determine it. That is Islam for you. Hajj, if you are capable and feeling like you are stingy, Allah is telling you, I've made it compulsory on you to at least once
in your whole life.
So Islam is the pillars of Islam are defining at least. It's not defining at most. So don't say because I've given my zakat to zakat fund, I cannot give my sadaqah to zakat fund. No, zakat is the one that is you have been compelled to do, and sadaqah is the one that you are doing it voluntarily. Do you think if I pay 20 cedi zakat and I pay 100,000 cedi sadaqah, the reward are going to be the same? No. I'll be rewarded for my 20 cedi zakat, and I'll be rewarded for my 100,000 sadaqah, because they are all sadaqahs, because they are all to prove your what? Sincerity. Just that this one, you have been compelled, and I'm sure if you didn't have iman and Allah didn't compel you, you wouldn't have given anything at all. Those who wouldn't have given anything at all, they are the reason why we have 2.5%. But those who truly love Allah and are willing to give, my brother, I can assure you they have no limit. So don't go and sometimes I meet people and they will come and be telling me a story. Hey, but the way you are collecting this thing from people who pay sadaqah, then that one we can call it sadaqah. I said, go to the Quran. That's already how Allah call it.
So do you have?
Do you know the amazing thing? When you go to Surah Tawbah, one in this world, we have our Momo account. We also have our merchant account, and Zakat Fund has an account with about 12 different banks, including international banks operating in Ghana here.
So wherever you are.
Zakat Fund can also even take your Zakat, even if it is in dollars, because we have dollar account, and today monies can easily be converted. And Zakat is about value. The value of what you have. And please, if you are owner of properties that you know that you have rented them out and you are also collecting annual rent, know that if this rent that you have collected cross the nisab, it's an income that you have earned. Zakat is applicable to you. If you are a farmer, it is still possible for you to either send your proceeds or you convert your proceeds into its true value. If I have 100 bags of rice to give as zakat, and zakat office is 100 miles away, I can simply go to the market, sell it at the existing price, and use the money to pay into Zakat and Sadaqa Trust Fund of Ghana. You have still done that, because if somebody needs rice, Zakat Fund can buy rice and give to the person. So it is up to us. Allah has already questioned us in the Quran. Don't you reason? Don't you use? Don't you reflect? Let us use the brains, the knowledge, the wisdom that Almighty Allah has given to us to do what is expected of us. So you can pay your zakat as determined already in the Quran by the items that have been mentioned in the Quran. And you must bear in mind that all these items were being referred to based on the economic area where these items were just the economic activities that people were embarked on. Today our economies have gone beyond that. Today the person, when we talk of a person legally, it goes beyond even a human being now, because we have the human person and we have a legal person. So your corporate profits and other things, they are still something that if you are a Muslim and a believer, you can still look at them. Today people hide and call them corporate social responsibility. That could just be your zakat to be paid into the Zakat and Sadaqa Trust Fund of Ghana. We have given you our word, and so far we have operated for almost 17 years. Nobody has ever heard of any misconduct or any embezzlement, because the people who serve as trustees of the Zakat and Sadaqa Trust Fund are operating under oath to keep this amount to our country and to our continent and to the globe. That's how we are connected.
Haj, thank you very much. It's been wonderful having you. And we want to thank our viewers and our listeners who were with us all this while. And inshallah, we will continuously update you on any other activities of Zakat and Sadaqa Trust Fund as and when. And we want to remind you, every year, the Zakat and Sadaqa Trust Fund render an account publicly in Parliament, as we are having this discussion in Parliament.
And to the National Muslim Conference.
The National Muslim Conference. So inshallah, we'll keep updating.
And on our website too, you can find
more information
on how our annual performance.
So thanks so much, Dr. Alhaji Inusah, Baba Inusah, for this wonderful enlightenment.
Because I'm doing Allah's work, you see that I've been promoted. He has given me a doctorate degree. So when you also do Allah's work,
may Allah richly bless you and protect you, and continuously to guide you, give you more ample knowledge and time for you to continuously serve as you are serving the Muslim community. For you, our cherished listeners and our viewers on Baraka 98.7 FM, to say continue to listen to us, because we are the station with the blessing. My name is Abdul Fattah Bawa Yusuf, saying stay out of trouble and continue to be a good citizen. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi.